Hello and welcome back to Middle-earth, where we are taking our Variag Hordes on the run. In the previous episode, we pulled up stakes from our homelands in Khand, and today we are closing in on our first target, our northern neighbor and current ally, the Chiefdom of Rune. Now, before we get into this, I want to point out a couple of things, a couple of challenges that we will be facing in this campaign as we make use of the Horde mechanics. Some of these are typical to vanilla barbarian invasion horde mechanics, but some of them are specific to the mod 4th Age Total War itself. The typical stuff is the income. We're not going to have any income. As you can see, our projected profits are 0, and that's going to continue essentially unless we do things like sacking a settlement, recruiting mercenaries. Things like that will make our income go up or down. Until we settle, though, we're not going to get any regular income. So we are stuck essentially with 30,545. That will go up as we sack, but of course the danger there is that we're losing troops, and this brings us to our other problem, that we cannot retrain or replace our troops in any way until we settle. We can recruit mercenaries, but we do have to pay for the upkeep for those, and all of our current units are free, so mostly we want to try to keep what we have and not use mercenaries unless we absolutely have to. That's typical stuff. The other thing that is a vanilla mechanic is that when we settle, we will start to lose these armies, so we have to be very, very careful about how we do that. We need to make sure we've eliminated nearby threats and made a safe place for us to settle. Now, another issue is family members. We have quite a few here. We've got 7 or 8. I believe it's 8 family members currently. We have all of our 7 hordes led by a family member, and one of them has 2 at the helm, essentially. I don't know how the game is going to handle adding new family members to this list. Now, for those of you who are not aware, in Rome Total War, there's kind of a formula whereby the game sends you adoptees, marriage offers, and even makes your family members more fertile, shall we say, depending on how many settlements you have relative to those family members. It tries to maintain a certain ratio of towns to characters. And the problem is, of course, that we do not have any towns. So I suspect the game is going to be extremely slow to give us new family members. And I don't know what happens, actually, when we lose a horde or start to lose family members to old age or in battle. So we'll have to see how our family members survive. Now, a couple of things, though, are specific to 4th Age Total War, a couple of challenges in particular. One of them is the experience level of the Horde troops. As you can see, Horde units, as indicated by this black wheel icon, have no experience to start. Now, in vanilla, that's not necessarily a bad thing. 0 experience is sort of the default for most of your troops. In 4th Age Total War, though, a lot of your troops that you see are going to have 3 experience, 6 experience, maybe even more. You can see that the troops we bothered to train or start with all start with those 3 silver chevrons of experience and gold weapon upgrades. And the hordes are different. These are just your sort of regular settlers who are on the road, and you gave them an axe or a bow and some equipment and kind of hope for the best. So we have massive numbers. We have a great advantage in terms of numerical superiority against whoever we're going to be fighting for the most part, but we do not have the best quality of troops, and that's going to sort of compound the problem of troops being difficult to replace. We want to win as much as possible while taking as few losses. The other big issue that I'm worried about is supply. 4th Age has a supply mechanic. This is done through the traits. So if you go to a family member and you go down near the bottom of the trait list, you will see something like supplied, well supplied. Let's see, I think they should probably all be at the supplied level currently. But it is going to go down with this guy's well supplied. These supply traits are going to fluctuate over time. Typically, you're well supplied if you're in your homelands. But once you set foot on enemy territory or outside of your homelands, you are going to lose supply. You're going to go down from well supplied, which gives you some bonuses, as you can see, a +1 to troop morale, to regular old supplied, which is no bonuses, no penalties. And as the supply goes down, in other words, the more turns we spend on hostile territory, the harder it is to maintain supplies, and that trade is going to decrease over time, which means we're going to lose things like troop morale, we're going to lose movement points, line of sight for the armies, and other effects. Other bad effects are going to happen to us. So this means that we may have more problems than a vanilla game would when it comes to managing hordes. I do have some plans for this, however. If things get too bad, we start to take too many losses, we start to get concerned about supply levels, we can settle and rehorde. So there's no reason we can't take a settlement or 3 and then start the process all over again. So we're going to continue with that. Now, the first thing we have to do, though, is get some cities. So we're going to go ahead and attack our ally here, which is Rune. Adel is a pretty undefended settlement. They do have a family member here. This is a chieftain's guard unit, javelin, sword, very well armored, and they've got some other stuff, a couple of spearmen of Rune. These are decent units, but the rest of it's pretty basic, so I'm not too concerned. I've got against this my siege army, so this is led by my heir, actually. He's not too good. He's an incompetent governor and an inept commander, but he is at least a wall breaker, which gives him a +1 command bonus when assaulting walls. So I figured I'd give him the siege army just to see how he does. This is mostly infantry, as you can tell. We do have a couple of units of cav. These are dragon shield riders. I brought them for their armor mostly, but also for the ability to frighten nearby enemy, and they have a bit of versatility in that they are archers. But all the rest of these units, apart from the general, are going to be cav. Now, this is my ally. Rune is my ally. I also have another ally, though, the Kingdom of Adunabar, and what I would like to do is have Rune and Adunabar go to war. And that's going to be more difficult to do if they remain allies. But I'm going to try to drive a stake between that alliance right now. We'll see how this goes. We're going to build some rams and see what messages we get here in terms of our diplomacy. So we retained our alliance with Adunabar, but as you will notice, Adunabar is no longer allied to Rune and vice versa. So that is actually great. What that means is that potentially, once we hoard up Rune, they may head into the west here and start causing problems for the western factions, which I would like to see. Let's hit the end turn now. I think we've done everything we can do at the moment. Our hordes are moving, and this episode we're going to see if we can take the settlement of Adel. All right. So Horad and Adunabar have formed an alliance. That is fine. Let's go ahead and do this. It's good to have our hordes spread out in a kind of like a net here so we can see if anyone's coming to intercept or retake this. But we should be all set. So we're just going to jump into the assault. Should be fairly straightforward. Okay, so this is our first look at the battlefield units for Khand. This is our bodyguard unit, our general Dragon Guard. Again, they're armed with lances and maces. They frighten enemy infantry. They're good against armor. All-around great unit, a little slow. And you don't want to get them caught by spearmen, by heavy infantry, things like that. A lot of our units, though, are these fairly basic infantry types. We've got the Variag Axemen here. Pretty straightforward. We do have some decent archers in the Horde Archers of Khand and our Steppe Archers. And we've got a very nice Horde Variag Warriors here with two-handed axes for that armor-piercing effect. So I think we'll just lead with the Variag Axemen. They are... Actually, you know what? We did bring a unit of Horde Nomadic Watchmen, a couple of them, with the express purpose of using them to push rams. So that's what they're going to do. Also, we'll want to bring the archers up to the front line. And we have, looks like 4 units of these Archers of Khand. We have to be very, very careful of those towers. We do not want them to get caught. These units, Horde Steppe Archers, 155 yards. And they have less range than the Horde archers of Khan, which is 175, so it's quite a difference there. So we're actually going to want these guys more near the front. Okay, and then I think we'll just move everybody else up here. We may as well also bring our Dragon Shield Riders. They have a pretty respectable range themselves. We'll bring them... Let's put one unit here. Not likely to get hit by the walls. And start the battle and rush the archers up. There's actually no one over here for our horse archers to shoot, so we'll just bring these back and start the ram process. Alright, so it looks like Rune has some skirmishers here. And again, we don't want to get hit by anything. Ideally, we don't want to take any losses, but that's obviously too much to hope for. So we want to minimize things like missile fire, because that's just free kills the enemy can get. And we will want to focus on their tougher units, such as the Spearmen of Rune, but I don't think we'll be able to get within range of them. It looks like they may be pulling back. I may as well get these guys off the rams. And so these Variag warriors are going to be useful against those heavy infantry, those Spearmen of Rune, potentially the bodyguard, although the bodyguard is always tricky because they have javelins too. Okay, so they are going to come back, which is great. Get a few more shots in.
The gate is broken. Your warriors have done brave work with the battering ram.
And they may come down as we move into the city. They've got another unit of skirmishers there, but no archers. Chieftain's Guard, and this is a unit of Riders of Rune, another pretty decent cavalry unit. Let's get the Spearmen up here. Actually, let's wait. If those Spearmen of Rune are going to come down, I will definitely let them. You can do as much damage as possible. Oh, that's great. Pretty much wiped out that unit.
Our warriors have driven the enemy from his own walls. The way to victory is open.
Right, Chieftain's Guard may be a bit of a problem here. We're going to want to move up these guys. Again, the Nomadic Watchmen are here mostly to soak up unnecessary losses. And so they're taking that javelin fire. Alright, they're sending in some warband, which is a fairly even fight, honestly. Very good. I think we can hold out against these guys, at least for a while. And this is my 0 experience unit of Horde Nomadic Watchmen. One thing that we will want to do is make use of our bodyguard units, actually. in certain situations, because these guys will replenish. So I'll do that right now. There's spearmen over here, but if I can kill off the enemy general with my bodyguard unit, that would be fine. And maybe that would cause a rout here as well. Switch to the maces here. Alright, wavering. There's only 2 of them left. We are getting pulled a bit into these fights against the Easterling Warband, but he's routing now. If we can kill him... And it looks like we will, because he's stuck. Nope, routing. There we go. Great. Fantastic. So now we will run down these spearmen. And that's it for the tough units. There is a unit of Easterling skirmishers over here. And up there, there's a unit of Riders of Rune. I think what we'll do is we'll bring up a unit of Horde Variag warriors for that. We'll bring up the Nomadic Watchmen just as extra bodies. And I'll send the general too. Maybe he can take out those skirmishers by himself. Again, any losses we take here, and we did take some, are going to replenish over time. This is the only... that's the only type of unit where that can happen when you're a Horde. And it's the only type of unit in Rome Total War where you actually replenish without having to retrain stuff. But as you can see, he's already winded, that Dragon Guard unit. These cataphract cavalry types are not the best in terms of stamina. But I think we have enough fear-causing units here. We're shooting them. That this should be pretty good. These guys are already shaken. Even though we won't get a good charge, there they go. Very nice. And the other thing that's great is that we can use the archers to pull these units out of the square, so we don't need to follow them all the way in there and fight them to the very last man. If we can get them all to rout before killing them all, we will definitely do that. Right.
Mounted archers. Spearmen. Mounted archers. Forward. Spearmen. Spearmen. Forward. Axemen.
Okay, so here they come. They're a little hesitant. But as we do get kills, that is going to pull them out. Alright, not enough. So we'll send in the foot archers. Alright, they're within range.
Ready.
We are getting some friendly fire. Now I know what's going to happen. They're going to charge my archers this time. So I have to be ready to run. Ah, shoot. Okay. Well, maybe we will have to go in. This should be fine, though. We'll send in the Variags, the Nomadic Watchmen. Send these cavalry around the side, not that we'll need it. All that we've got in here is some Easterling Warband and Riders of Rune. Probably the Variag Warriors could handle it by themselves to a large extent, but we do want to spread around the losses. Let's see. I think that Horde Nomadic Watchman would be a good unit to send in first. I want to try to preserve this one and have one that's just used for pushing rams and other kind of trash duty. So it's okay if one gets beaten down.
Axeman, ready. Riders. Axeman. Move out. Spearman. Orders completed. March. Axeman. Slay their bodyguard. Attack quickly. Units rise.
Alright, so
Spearmen, riders. Attack! Units, missile, attack quickly. Orders completed. Riders. Mounted archers.
alright, down to 6, 5. There we go. Alright, very good. We got our first settlement. And again, we're not going to keep this, of course. We are going to sack it. So, out of 1,341, we lost a little less than 100. Not too bad. The problem, however, is that since we are sacking and not occupying, we will not be able to destroy the infrastructure. There will be some incidental destruction that happens, but as you can see, we will only have two options here to sack. So occupy or to sack. Now, this is a good time potentially to talk about how occupying would work, I think. And certainly correct me if I am wrong about this, but what I've observed through previous playthroughs with Horde factions is that when it says you will lose some of the soldiers, some of your Horde warriors, it's not necessarily that you will lose exactly 1/3 of them. You will lose whichever of your Horde warriors are inside the settlement. That's for the first settlement, and then the same goes for the second settlement, and then for the third settlement that you choose to occupy rather than sack. All of your Horde units go away. And again, that's just the units with the wheel symbol on them. So what that means is if you want to sack, or occupy, but retain the most of your troops, you want to make sure you don't have a bunch of units inside the province. So what I would do here, and again, I'm not going to occupy, but if I were to occupy this place and keep most of my army, I'd make sure all of these armies were out across the border. But we're going to sack. Let your armies loose upon the settlement in the surrounding area, loot everything of value, and continue the search for a new homeland for your people, leaving the ashes of burning buildings in your wake. So we would kill or exile 3,808 people in this settlement or province, and we would gain almost, a little over 3,500 from looting. So we'll definitely choose that. This becomes a rebel settlement. Thing to watch out for is sometimes these rebels are fairly aggressive, and if you'll notice, there are some higher tier units among these guys. Eastland Darkhelms is a unit that Rune can train eventually, but it's very high tier. And we have wrecked a lot of the buildings, but unfortunately we can't systematically destroy all of these now because we don't own the settlement. That's fine. Alright, settlement sacked, and we're going to decide where to move next. Now, our goal is to wipe out all of Rune's settlements, and they have a total of 5 when they start the campaign. We'll see if they made any more progress, and it looks like they did. They went into Erebos, so we will want to take this out as well. And sometimes early on, Rune can expand even further to the west. We want to make sure we get all of them. But before we go on, maybe a good time to meet the family here. We do have our chieftain here, the High Chieftain of Rune, Alam of Central Khand. He is, let's see, he is a wall builder. Now, so one of the things about the stats for the mod is that your population is divided up into different subcultures. And the sort of dominant subculture is the one usually that your ruler is a member of, but there are others, and it affects their opinion of the king if people are from a different subculture. But wall builders are interesting. So they're mostly for cities rather than for fighting. As you can see, the stats here would give him increased public order, an extra bonus to trade income, but a negative to troop morale. So these wall builders are good at settling. They're not necessarily good on the road. On the other hand, a family member like this guy, fan of the tribe of the Silken Knot, I think this was an adoptee, man of the steppes. So he's going to be good at cavalry, good at moving, and so he is he's not going to be good at settling. Typically, they get a penalty to law. In this case, I've given him the all-cavalry army. For the most part, the Horde armies you're going to see that I've assembled are a decent mix of infantry and cav. This guy, because he is a man of the steppes, because he's a decent commander, we're going to make him the cavalry master. And that means that theoretically, we could right now assault Erebos and sack that as well. And I think I may in fact do that just to get that under my belt. Not for this episode, but for another episode. So we'll do that. And we also need to take care of Amrun Dor. Now, this is my High Chieftain's army. I may use him for that. He's not going to be around very long. As we can tell, he is seasoned. There's no age markers in this mod, so you do have to use the traits to determine roughly how old your family members are. This guy is probably not going to be around for too many more turns. So I may as well use him here, and we will sack Amrun Dor with him. Let's go and build some rams. This has a nice stockade wall, which means archers and skirmishers and stuff can get up there. So this might be a little more challenging. But let's see who's in here. Just some axemen, and I can't really tell anything else. But let's see if there are any other armies approaching. Okay, I don't see any in the area, but this is the capital of Rune, Tham. So this is a noble, and this is where a lot of their troop production is going to come from. The sooner we can sack this, the better. So let's move our armies up there as well. This guy is another one of my competent commanders, and he is a Variag. So this is a particular subculture within Khand. So this is your army commander type subculture. So the wall builders are more for like the leaders of the settlements. The Easterners, or the men of the steppe, are going to be more of your cavalry riders, your outriders, your screen, like this guy is. But Thand of Alag Rokbin, he is a Variag. So this man is descended from those who once counted themselves as Northmen before declaring their allegiance to Khandian overlords. Variags are warlike folk who are renowned for their many conflicts in the region, but their pride and combative nature makes them often resented by the people they rule. So extra troop morale, decreased troop training costs, but decreased public order. Those latter two elements are not going to mean anything for us until we settle, and so we are basically using him for the fact that he's a decent commander, but he also is going to get some bonuses to morale. So I'll send him up. We want to make sure that there's no armies of Rune approaching us. We want to cast a fairly wide net here, because we don't want our sieges to be interrupted. And we want to decide exactly how and when we're going to fight, where and when. One thing we may want to double check. Okay, it looks like, so Adunabar has taken these eastern Mordor settlements, which is actually very good to know, because Rune doesn't have them yet. They're not under siege, and so we can safely move north without having to worry about leaving an army of Rune behind us. All right. Well, I think that's a good point for the episode to stop, ladies and gentlemen. Next time, we'll probably just assault this off camera, but we're going to have maybe another 2 settlements sacked under our belt, and we'll proceed northward to see if we can push Rune into a horde of its own, and then get out of there so they don't cause too many problems for us, before we continue on our ultimate journey towards Dale, to ruin these guys before sweeping back south and seeing how much other trouble we can get into. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you will stick around for the next episode. Until then, take care, everybody.